Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, good morning. This is going to be your wake-up call. I pulled up an article here from Zero Hedge that I thought you may be interested in. But before I start, let me say that I know that I've been going over a lot of financial things regarding to the economy and such. And I know this is not a finance channel, but I think this is pretty important. Okay, so that's why I'm going over it. However, I do have a review that I'm going to be doing tonight after I get home from work, okay, on a long-term food storage. So stay tuned for that. But this is a real short article, okay? I'm going to read through it, and then you guys can all think, or you guys can all think what you want to think about it. But I think that it's pretty important to show this off because, as I've been telling you in some past videos, that it's getting more and more relevant that this type of news is being put out there by the mainstream media, and it's not hiding in corners anymore. It's actually being put out there by financial shows. I even heard Kramer talking about it, I don't know, a few days ago, yesterday, the day before. All I know is that I heard him talking about it on one of the finance channels. I don't even know what network he's affiliated with. But anyways, here we go. Media suddenly warns of recession by the end of 2020 that will be worse than the Great Depression. And that title right there is kind of weird to me because it says it warns of a recession that will be greater or that will be worse than the Great Depression. Well, wouldn't that be a Great Depression? So anyways, here we go. And it says here, the mood of the mainstream media is really starting to shift dramatically. At one time, they seemed determined to convince all of us that happy days were here again for the U.S. economy. But now some mainstream news outlets are openly warning that the next recession will be worse than the Great Depression. Do they really believe that this is true? Or is there some other purpose behind their bold headlines? Of course, it isn't exactly difficult to predict that another recession is coming because the U.S. economy has experienced recession after recession ever since the Federal Reserve was first established in 1913. But the phrase worse than the Great Depression implies that we will soon be facing the worst economic downturn in all of U.S. history. That is a very bold statement to make, and it should not be done lightly. That is why if you hear a buzz in the background, ladies and gentlemen, that's my heater just turned on, so I apologize if you hear that. That is why I've been absolutely astounded by some of the mainstream headlines that I have been seeing lately. For example, the following comes from a New York Post article entitled, "The Next Crash Will Be Worse Than the Great Depression, Experts." We think the major economies are on the cusp of this turning into the worst recession we have seen in 10 years, said Murray Gunn, head of global research at Elliott Wave International. And in a note, he added, should the U.S. economy start to shrink, and our analysis suggests that it will, the high nominal levels of debt will instantly become a very big issue. And there is an excerpt from an article, and here is an excerpt from an article posted on MSM entitled, "Experts Warn the Next Recession Will Be Worse Than the Great Depression and Predict it will hit U.S. within 2 years as $247 trillion of global debt outdoes 2008. The next recession could put the 2008 financial crash to shame. If two experts' predictions about the worldwide debt of $247 trillion are correct." To put this into perspective, ladies, $247 trillion is about 3.5 times the amount of global GDP. If I remember correctly, global GDP is around $70 trillion. And for those of you who don't understand what GDP is, gross domestic product, I'm going to put it in the simplest terms that I can describe it in. The global domestic product, let's say, for example, let's say if you just brought it down to the household level, okay? So like for example, let's say if you have a job where you make $40,000 a year, right? The global domestic product for your household, if you're the only one working there, is $40,000. Okay? So if your debt is $150,000 or $160,000, that means that your debt to GDP ratio would be about 3.5. Right? So if you want to narrow it down real small, that way you can really take a look at some simple numbers. That's about what it works out to, okay? So expected to hit the United States within the next 2 years, the impact has been compared to the severe worldwide economic crisis which started 1929 and lasted until 1939. It is particularly interesting that the author of the last article chose to use the phrase within the next 2 years. That strongly implies that the U.S. economy will have plunged into the next recession before the next presidential election takes place. And personally, I think that within the next 2 years is very, very likely, if not sooner. Okay. Other mainstream outlets are using similar language. For example, the following comes from a Bloomberg article entitled, "Two-thirds of U.S. business economists see recession by the end of 2020. Two-thirds of business economists in the U.S. expect a recession to begin by the end of 2020, while a plurality of respondents say trade policy is the greatest risk to the expansion, according to a new survey. About 10% see the next contraction starting in 2019, 56% say 2020, and 33% say 2021 or later, according to the August 28th, September, 17 poll of 51 forecasters issued by the National Association for Business Economists on Monday. So that's where they got this information from, the percentage-wise of people who think the economy is going to go into recession within the next so many years. And it says here, those are stunning numbers. If they are correct, and I have no reason to doubt them, that means that 66% of mainstream economists believe that the next recession will strike in either 19 or 20. Of course, those that follow my work on a regular basis already know that there are a multitude of signs that indicate that the U.S. economy is already slowing down. I wanted to share another one of those signs with you today. For years, the real estate market in Manhattan was red hot, but now we just witnessed the 4th straight quarter of double-digit declines. Wow, that's a lot. And let's read on here. Total real estate sales in Manhattan fell 11% in the 3rd quarter compared with a year ago, marking the 4th straight quarter of double-digit declines. According to new data from Douglas Elliman Real Estate and Miller Samuel Real Estate appraisers and consultants, it was also the first time since the financial crisis that resales of existing apartments fell for 4 straight quarters. Prices fell, inventory jumped, and discounts were higher and more common. Real estate brokers say the Manhattan real estate market is suffering from an oversupply of luxury units, a decline of foreign buyers, and changes in the tax law that make it more expensive to own property in high-tax states. At this point, the housing market in New York City has become a buyer's market, and there is no sign that things are going to turn around anytime soon. If you all remember what I said, I think it was either yesterday or the day before yesterday, I mentioned something about that when the housing market starts to downturn, that it's going to start with the luxury, with the high-priced homes, and it's going to work itself down. And I hadn't read this article before, but that's what they're saying right there, is that in Manhattan, which is one of the highest priced real estate markets in the country, you have the East Coast, like Manhattan, New York, and then you have the West Coast in California, you know, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, places like that. Those prices in those areas, I'm saying, this is my opinion, is that the really high-priced homes in those areas, those are the ones that are going to be hit first. And it seems that it's already happening in Manhattan. Let's see, where was I here? Offers 20% and 25% below asking price began to flow in, a phenomenon last seen in 2009. Wow, so they're like, their starting offers are 20 to 25% less than the asking prices. Okay. And let's say here, Warburg's report dovetails with separate data showing a definitive cooling in New York's housing market. The number of homes for sale in the city recently hit a record, according to StreetEasy data, amid fewer sales transactions. Meanwhile, September's report from real estate firms M&S showed Manhattan apartment rental prices, the most expensive in the city. Wow. Oh, on a decline, yeah. Of course, this is not just happening in New York City. Home sellers all over the nation are slashing their prices at the fastest rate that we have seen in the last 8 years. In order for people to be able to afford to buy expensive homes, they need good jobs, and more good jobs just keep getting shipped out of the country. For example, Verizon just announced that they will be shipping thousands of information technology jobs to India. Earlier this week, Verizon confirmed that it offered a voluntary severance package to about 44,000 employees and that it will transfer over 2,500 IT staff. Some rumors suggest the figure to be closer to 5,000 employees to India-based Infosys as part of $700 billion outsourcing deal. So it looks like Verizon is going to, I guess, offer about roughly between 2,500 and 5,000 employees a transfer to work in India, but they're laying off about 44,000 employees. Wow, that's a lot. The layoffs and transfer will impact more than 30% of Verizon's 153,000 employee workforce as of the end of June, and a part of a 4-year plan to save the largest U.S. wireless carrier $10 billion by 2021. What would you do, ladies and gentlemen, if you were a company? You know, that's a really good question that I'm going to ask you. If you were a company based in the U.S. and take your personal morals, you know, out of the way, okay, and just think like a business person. And unfortunately, to think of a business person, you really, this is kind of difficult to say, but to think like a business person nowadays, at least, okay, you really do have to take morals out of the equation, because a lot of times doing what is right is not profitable, okay? So, for example, the other day I paid for someone's coffee. Was that profitable to me? Maybe morally it was, but was it profitable monetarily? No. But that's not even close to being a company like Verizon. If they're going to be able to save $10 billion in the next 3 years or 2.5 years by doing what they're doing right here, do you think that they are right in doing so? If they can move their operations to a different country to save $10 billion so that they can stay in business, all right? Do you guys think that that's right? You know, I'm kind of torn, you know, on whether I could do that or not. But you also have to think about that Verizon probably has stockholders, you know, and they have to be able to satisfy their stockholders. If not, their stocks will plummet, further injuring their business and probably putting them out of business. So what do you guys think? Would you guys, if you guys were the CEO of Verizon, would you be making this move in order to save the company $10 billion, you know, in the next couple of years? So I don't know. That's a tough question. It is. For some people, it will be very easy. They'll be like, no, I'd rather close my business than to have to move out of the U.S. But then if you could close your business, you're going to end up affecting a lot of people that would still be hired. You know, there's 153,000 employees, right? Let's say out of those 153,000 employees, let's say 100,000 work in the U.S. 100,000 have jobs in the U.S. But you have to move 50,000 of those jobs out of the U.S. in order to be able to stay above water and continue to employ the 100,000 that are still left in the U.S.? Is that a decision that you would make, or would you just say, no, forget it, I'm just going to either sell the company or let it go under? So a lot of people don't understand that, and it's a difficult it's a difficult decision to make. You know, if you have 150,000 employees, you know, in the U.S., and I don't know if this is just in the U.S. or worldwide, but I'm just making this up. If you have 150,000 employees in the U.S., and in order for your company to keep its head above water, you have to lay off 50,000 people in the U.S. and bring some of those jobs overseas so that you can afford to still be able to hire or to employ 100,000 people that are left in the U.S. Is that something that you think is right? You know, or should it be an all or none kind of scenario? So we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. All right, let's finish it off here. If you get angry when you read such stories, that is good, because they should make you angry. The middle class in America is being systematically eviscerated, and the U.S. economy is steadily being hollowed out. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, true. I do believe that this administration is trying to make a difference, but I'm not sure if the actions of this administration are going to be able to stop the inevitable. I don't think that it will. I think we are going to eventually go into a period of a lot of pain, and that pain is going to hopefully make us stronger. And that brings me to a reply that I gave to one of our subscribers yesterday. And when I say that, ladies and gentlemen, a reply that I gave to one of our subscribers, I'm pretty senile and I always forget. All right, so I don't want to try to remember a name here while I'm talking. So I told our subscriber about how we are going. Well, he was explaining to me that we're going to go through a lot of pain, but we need to go through a lot of pain in order to get better as an economy in a country. And I said, yes, sometimes you have to go through a lot of pain to get better. And I gave him something that happened to me when I was younger. I broke my arm. I broke my left arm, and I broke it really bad in a couple of places. I actually broke it right in half. So when I went to the doctor told my dad, listen, it's going to be a lot better if we put that arm back in place without using anesthetic. And the doctor looked at me and he said, do you understand what I'm saying? And I said, yeah, just do what you have to do. And I remember that day vividly. I said, just do what you have to do. And I held, you know, one of the arms of the chair I was sitting in, and my father was holding my shoulders, and my brother was holding my arm. I guess, you know, because they didn't know what to expect. And the doctor started putting my arm back in place, and it was terrible. It was a terrible pain. And my arm hurt for months. I had a cast on that arm for almost 5 months, okay? But the amazing thing is that even after going through all that pain on my arm, when my cast was taken off, my arm was a little bit smaller than my right arm, my left arm was, but my left arm was surprisingly stronger than my right arm. So even after having gone through all that pain and all that discomfort for those 4.5, 5 months, my left arm, after all the injury that it sustained and trauma that it sustained, it was actually stronger than my right arm. And to this day, my left arm is smaller than my right arm, but it's stronger than my right arm. So I don't know if that makes sense, but pretty much what I'm trying to say is that in order for us to get out of this okay on the other side, we are going to go through pain. And I think we're going to go through a lot of pain and a lot of suffering throughout our nation and probably the world. But I think that if we keep things together, that when we come out the other side, those of us that do make it, you know, out the other side, I think we'll be a lot stronger and we'll be able to preserve a better future for our children. And having said that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that you have all had a great week. Thank goodness it's Friday. All right. Still got to go to work and knock this day off, but thank goodness it's Friday. Please join me later on tonight. I'm going to do a review, and then we'll get ready for the weekend. So remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.